to Rue's life. It's an absolutely glorious day here. Here I am in the polytunnel, and what I wanted to do today is just give you an update on how everything's progressing. So over here we've got a little bit of spinach just in this first tray on the right there, the small tray. I've got the pea shoots behind that. I sowed some geranium seeds, and you can just see there's one developing quite nicely, and there's just another one germinating there. I've had quite a lot of things a little bit slow to germinate this year, but I'll be honest, a lot of the seeds that I were using are stuff that have been sitting in the bottom of the tin, and I just decided that I should try, sowing them before they really get useless. So I think that's why I've had some slower germination on some of the things that I've sown, but all in all I'm really pleased. So in this middle one here, they are dahlia, and they're really getting ready to start thinking about moving, but I need to think about where I'm going to move them to. I've got some carrots here. This tray here has got a wildflower mix in it, and I think I'm just going to clear the pots in front of the house and pop those into those pots, and that should give us a lovely pop of colour through the summer. I've still got some tomato plants here. I've got 3 varieties of tomato this year. I've got a beef tomato, a plum tomato, and then a yellowy variety. I can't remember their exact names. See if I can see the labels from here. So I've got mortgage lifter here, which are the beef type. I've got golden sunrise, which are the smaller sweet yellow variety, and then these are the San Marzino, and they're a plum variety. I have transplanted some of them, and I will show you those in a moment. And then over here I've got the younger of the courgette. These ones weren't sown that long ago. I'll show you where the others are. I have sown some butternut squash, but there's no germination on those yet. The chilli, they're all doing okay, and they're getting ready to be moved into larger pots. The sunflowers, they're looking great. I've got some basil that you can just see there hiding behind their hanging baskets, some leek that are ready to be moved, and then out of the Alpan strawberry that I sowed in a tray, one of them is actually doing quite well. And then still the herbs across there. I so hope you're not watching, Mum, because they've been sitting there now for nearly a year, and I think a couple of them have died. So I really need to get those out into the herb bed. And then down here we've got the coriander, the perpetual spinach, and then I'll move across to this bed. So here now we've got the rhubarb chard and the Swiss chard, which I'd sown in pots, and I've transplanted that now into this bed. Here I have got a second sowing of red onion, and they're actually coming now. There's germination on those, if you can just see. I've got a couple of rows coming, so I'm quite pleased with that. The carrots I've thinned, and they're doing really well. The leek that I transplanted, and then the turnip are doing really, really well. The snowball and, I can't remember the other variety, but they're looking great. Now I did sow some seeds, some pansies, some calendula possibly, and some forget-me-not into these baskets, and they haven't germinated, but as I say, they were old seed, so I'll throw something else in there and see what happens. And the same in these baskets. They were a summer flower mix. There's a couple, but nothing really. And then we've got the potatoes over there, and then here we have 2 parsnip there, and they were all that germinated from my first sowing. So I did a second sowing, and I've had 1 that's germinated. So I'm really not having any luck with my parsnip this year, so I'm actually going to sit tight, and then I'll do a 3rd sowing and see how we go, because my parsnip last year were absolutely spectacular. I had a very high success germination and some smashing, I nearly said smashing pumpkins. Those of you of a certain age will recognise that. Some smashing parsnips, which we enjoyed right the way through the season, and we had them for our Christmas dinner. So yeah, a bit disappointing on the old parsnip front this year, but I will have another bash with those. And then over here I've got, I sowed 4 cucumber seed, and I've had full germination, and they've now been transplanted into this tub, and they're the Tasty King. Over here My initial courgette sowing, I've had 2 that have developed into nice plants. They're the green bush variety. So there's 2 there, and then the others that I just showed you earlier, when they're a little bit more established, I'll pop them into this bed as well. Here we've got the radish, which are doing really well. They're a mixed variety. There's some white and some red, and then not far away from being able to be eaten now. And then I'll just move you round the wind chime. And here the lettuce is doing really well, and then the celeriac here. And then into these tubs now, I've got, I don't know if anybody else has grown these borlotti beans. When they're developing, they're just beautiful to look at. So there are 4 in here, and then these ones were sown a little bit sooner, so they're a bit more established. And I think there's 3 in there. And then here are my runner beans. Now, I only transplanted these yesterday, and they are just looking a bit shocky. So I'm hoping that they're going to pep back up again. But I'm really pleased with the way that these have developed, and I've waited this year until they're a little bit more mature before I moved them into this pot. And then over here, I have moved my tomatoes. Now, the plum variety here, I'm really pleased, they're looking good. These Golden Sunrise, 3 of the 4 I've moved are looking good, but 1 isn't looking so good. And this corner here, they're looking absolutely terrible, and I think they're going to die. I suspect this compost just isn't, it was a little bit dry. I've had trouble, I've used all the compost I've got, and I've not been able to get any more with the you know, the lockdown and so on. So I'm going to try and get another bag of compost before, I've still got some more, as you saw, so I'm going to wait before I move any more, because I don't want to have any more fatalities. And then here in this bed is a very dead strawberry plant. I had the strawberries last year in the polytunnel, and I potted them all up, but I left it a bit late, and I let them get dry. And there was one that I thought was going to survive, so I've popped it in here, but I suspect it's not going to come to anything. So there we are. I mean, they were grown from seeds, and we had 2 fabulous years from them, so I really wasn't expecting anything this year. This tub is empty. And then in these 2 tubs, I've got some potatoes, some sarpomira, and some daziri, but nothing on those yet. But they weren't put in that long ago. And then here we have my rhubarb, which is doing really well. That was rhubarb that I started from seed 2 years ago, established in the polytunnel, and then moved out. And I think this will be the first year we might actually get a harvest from that. So I'm really, really pleased. Never grown rhubarb from seed before, so I'm really chuffed with that. And then here you can see the peas that I moved, oh gosh, quite some weeks ago now. And really it was a little bit too soon. But they're a bit straggly and they're not looking that healthy, but they're coming. And then the leek, some of which are actually going to flower because we haven't eaten them with one thing or another that's been going on. They have been left a bit long. There are just a few that are still harvestable, and the rest I will pull. And then these are my next batch of peas, which are looking much healthier, and they were moved out yesterday. I am aware that the temperature could still drop over the next week or so at night, so I will just cover those over at night if I feel the need. And then we've got the garlic and the onion, which are doing brilliantly. Now, in this bed, I'd actually moved out 2 rows of leek, and I'd started broad bean in the middle and put some onions down there at the far end. We've had a massive problem with pigeons and partridge and pheasant. They've pretty much had all the leek, so I've had to give up on those. They had pretty much all of my first lot of broad bean. I'll just move carefully around without tripping over. But you can see there are some of the original ones which are fairly well established. I don't know if you can see those. I'll just squat down. And I did a second sowing, and I have just got, I think there's probably, I've counted somewhere between 14 and 16 broad bean coming in that area. So I think they'll still be okay. And then the onions here they're actually recovering, but they've also been pecked at and they'd taken the tops of those off as well. So if I just move around, you can see now we've put the hoops up, and the plan was to net that, and I did have some netting left over from a project that we'd done with the chickens, but the netting isn't wide enough. So again, I can't just pop and fetch anything at the moment with everything that's going on. So I have ordered some, but obviously we're going to have a wait. So I'm just keeping an eye on these, shouting furiously in the mornings at the birds, and I'm not going to put anything else in this bed until we can get the netting over. Just to protect them. The broad bean are just going to have to fend for themselves, but the leek, as I say, they were such little ones that yeah, the birds just pecked them all out. The bed there with on the left that you're looking at now, closest to the polytunnel, and this bed I've been given a really good weeding twice over the last couple of weeks. This end bed has enough, well, I say it's nothing in it, it's full of weeds, but I haven't put anything in this bed yet. I need to give it a good weed, and ideally I'd like to give it a top dressing of compost if I can get some. Otherwise I may use some grass clippings for mulch. And this is the bed that I'm saving, hopefully, for the pumpkin and squash this year. Now, this is the area that we always planned to have the wildflower meadow, which we started last year unsuccessfully, and we had another plan this year. But again, because of lockdown and because of being unable to get things, that just hasn't happened this year. So we've just trimmed that down. And then if I just move you around, the whole of the paddock now has had a good strimming, apart from the very far end. We do like to leave some just wild for the birds and the butterflies and the bees and the insects and bugs. And so there's a good chunk down there under the trees that we've left alone. But yeah, we've started strimming again. So I'm really pleased with the way things are progressing. You know, some of the plants are looking a lot healthier than others, but overall I'm really, really chuffed. So I hope you're all well. I hope you're getting some of this glorious weather. I hope you're all keeping safe. Thank you very much for watching. To anybody that might be new, or those of you that aren't new but haven't subscribed, please do consider subscribing to my channel and hit that bell to get notifications of my new and latest videos. But for now, thank you ever so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you all again soon.